Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Pavelko. I, as indicated earlier, was with Lockheed 37 years. The last 15 or 16, though, was being assigned to programs or projects that were in trouble, some of them quite large. I'd like to, will be guidance based on my experience used to turn these programs around and be successful with them. I will be talking about my basic approach, but we'll be highlighting mostly those features that I found were important to get a program back in good shape. And as indicated in the bottom, yes, we'll be talking about more models used to manage programs, but also appealing to what makes us human. That's the 200,000 years. That's an arguable number, but anthropologists are saying that we became Homo sapiens about that long ago. I appreciate the number of you are on the East Coast. That you have lunch coming up at 12 o'clock. We'll be done by then, and I'm looking forward to a lot of questions and comments. I appreciate your feedback. I may have to avoid some of the details of what I worked on in the past for, I think, obvious reasons. I want to make a point, though, that we may be discussing mistakes made in other programs that have been managed in general. I've never met anyone on a program that was incompetent or had a bad intent. So if mistakes are discussed, they're human mistakes. We all make. Certainly, I've made them. The bottom is a disclaimer that is pretty standard. These are my viewpoints. They don't necessarily represent all the viewpoints of Lockheed and my customers or prior employers. I did add a sentence that any outlines shown or checklists shown are from open source. These are not from government DIDs or from Lockheed standard formats. Folks, very quick, first and foremost, Lockheed Martin, they went through my manuscript when I wrote this book and really changed nothing. Given all I signed when I joined Lockheed, I'm sure many of you have joined large companies, they could have said no. And so thank you, Lockheed. Thank you, John Nicholas, who's a professor at Loyola University. He's been really a mentor in the public. John Wazalek and Dr. Ginger Levine from Taylor and Francis, particularly Ginger, for picking out my book proposal. If you ever write a book, the publishing people, Margie and Susan, we spend 6-7 weeks, almost every day, long hours, making this a book. And certainly Michael Milutis and Susan Soul, and I'm sorry, Jessica DeBure from MPI for sponsoring this. I'll be using terms in this presently. I have 35 charts total, and we're going to go through these fairly quickly. And again, your questions at the end. Turnaround is simply taking a program in trouble and getting it back in shape. In the industry, a lot of companies refer to any activity as a program. Some refer to it as a project. Those are used synonymously. Enterprise is the sponsor usually of where the program or project is being conducted. It doesn't have to be General Electric or Lockheed. It can be the Cupertino School District. It can be a nonprofit. It can be the venture capital that may be sponsoring a startup. A turnaround plan is a new plan. A turnaround is a discrete activity. When you're taking a program in trouble and getting it back on its feet, usually there's some significant changes that have to be made. It's the new plan. The customer, of course, is who you're doing this for. The turnaround lead is the new program lead. Sometimes it's the original program lead. If a program is in trouble, often it is someone, though, that has been chosen that's different. And they usually have a leadership team, people they resort to, and this is true for programs as small as 20 or 30 people or as large as 500. A turnaround commitment is the next important thing to do to start to demonstrate that this program is on a new track. And it's a key element in a program that you're saving, and we'll talk more about that. I want you to focus on A, B, and C in the center. In my experience at Lockheed, when I started there in 1974, I was very I'm looking at items here. Jessica, you see there's some questions. Oh, you got them. Okay, I'm new to this, and so I'm looking at the thing there. Okay, programs. I started working on programs and noticed that we're doing well. They had their typical challenges. And this can be any program. It doesn't have to be a product. It could be, or that is a physical product. It could be a new process that's being developed. And incidentally, what I'm going to talk about here applies to the wide genre of businesses. It just doesn't apply to technical or apply to IT or apply to aerospace, definitely. But a lot of programs do well. They've got challenges, and they go on ahead and are successful. And then I saw programs that were falling in trouble, and they seemed to be discreetly indifferent. And you could tell a program was in trouble, at least I could, because people would say, well, we're going through this is normal, this happens. It can't get any worse than this. And the next day it was actually a little bit worse. And in the worst situation, you'd see the morale begin to fall apart and the program almost implode. But then I noticed programs, and I was on a couple programs that were just, it could seem to do no wrong. They were again, discreetly different than just a regular program doing well. And decades ago, I kind of used a speedboat analogy. I said, those programs have gotten up on step. They are skimming on top of the water. If you look at the line below that, you see just a typical situation where a program starts and there's a series of milestones, and if it's in trouble, the actual accomplishments are falling behind what you had planned. And the falling behind does not have to be necessarily scheduled. It could be the cost is too much. It could be the performances are not being achieved. You may be on cost and schedule, but you're just not doing what you promised you would do. And so how do you fix something like this? You can stay with what you're doing and fall further behind, and hopefully there's going to be forgiveness, but that rarely works out well. You can streamline a current program and maybe stop the falling behind, but you're still not up to where you said you were going to be, and that's maybe okay in certain circumstances. My approach was always to get that program on step and hopefully get up to the point where we should be, to bring those red lines, vertical arrows, and blue arrows back together again. Just a quick, again, on steps, the analogy is a program is making good progress. A lot of the programs that are doing well and kind of in displacement mode for you folks that are sailors or boaters do tend to have a terminal velocity. They're often big, but they're turning the crank and doing the job well. But these programs on step seem to do the impossible sometimes. When they have a problem and you think it's going to be resolved in a week, it's resolved the next day. And they tend to deliver ahead of schedule and lower cost. And so I, right from the start of my career, was trying to determine what is the difference. And the first thing I observed, the difference was not the composition of the program. The competence of the people in these programs was almost identical, nor was it the customer asking for too much. There was something else. I was reluctant to put this chart in here, but this discusses some of the programs that some of the problems that cause a program to fall behind. The point of this chart, though, is that these problems are not insurmountable. Unfortunately, a lot of times when a program starts to fall into trouble, we think it's going to fail, and there often is not that much necessary to turn it around. Incidentally, I did a lot of research on this, and about right now in this country, about 1 out of 4, 25% of all the programs we start in all the genres don't succeed. And I was surprised it was that many. Of those that do succeed, roughly 65%